So this is a special track for sponsors to be able to get in and kind of give you some real world information about some things that we've done and things that have worked and things that might help you. And I'm really excited today. I get to have one of my best and most amazing clients with me, Stowers Research Institute, which is local to where I live. And my name is Sharon Weaver, and I don't have a bunch of slides for you today because I found that people are just getting worn out of looking at slides. So I'm Sharon Weaver. I'm with the Microsoft Regional Director Program. I own an IT consulting called Smarter Consulting, and we are sponsoring today. If you want to get your secret word, go over to the Smarter Consulting channel and fill out the form, and you will get a secret word emailed to you. And you can use that to enter the drawing. I think there's some really nice gift cards up for grabs, so make sure you fill that out. I'm going to go ahead and pass off Jessica and let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jessica Witt. I work as the Director of IT Applications and Development at the Stowers Institute for Medical Research. We have basically just about 25 different independent labs at Stowers that do research in various forms. They all kind of have their own path. Some do cancer research, some are doing memory research. So lots of basic cellular level biology type research being done at Stowers. The IT group that I work with really supports a lot of those scientific initiatives, and we develop software programs to help them manage their processes, to communicate better. Obviously, we have our intranet that helps the whole institute communicate a little bit better. And we really just support science and the overall institute with applications and developing special one-off things for their everyday needs.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming and spending a few minutes chatting about this. So we basically put some questions together that I thought would be helpful for other people as they transition, as they start using Microsoft 365 technologies. Stowers has been way ahead of the pack. Using stuff like, it's really funny, we have all these conversations because they're like just ahead of Microsoft and they always want to do the next thing, and I'm running back to Microsoft to see where they're at on it. So it's been really exciting to kind of stay on the cutting edge and to be able to keep up with them. So the first question that I have for you, Jessica, is why did you guys decide to go to M365 in the first place?
Sure. So I think a lot of our labs, right, originally when we decided to go to M365 in the cloud, a lot of our labs do a lot of traveling, right? They travel to scientific conferences. They're always trying to find the latest and greatest techniques to come and bring back to the Institute. And so we were looking for a tool that would allow more collaboration regardless of where that person was in the world, right? So they wanted to be able to continue conversations, to collaborate on documents, to be able to look at everything. And so, of course, you have the ability to VPN if you're on, a Stowers device in our world anyway, but this took one layer of that complication out. So they just now have to log in to their computer, pull up Teams, pull up our SharePoint site, simply single sign-on login. So it took one step out of that complication. They could also obviously do it then from their own devices. So that was one big reason. We also kind of had a scientific projects initiative where we were really looking to reconfigure or manage the data better, all of our scientific data better. And so some of the aspects of that tool, we realized the Office 365 suite in the cloud would help with that data organization, the ability for people to manage their own teams on their own, right? So previously IT was managing permissions at folder levels. This Teams approach allowed the members to manage those teams themselves. And so it kind of took us out of the mix, which just helps, I think, people collaborate in real time a little bit better. And so some of those features were required for that project, and we really looked at that and said, if we can get this going, I think we can do a lot more on that project as well.
Exciting. So after having gone over with all the stuff that we've done, before and during, and I don't even want to say after, because I think it's been a little bit of an ongoing process for us to kind of get everybody out there to the cloud and get them using things. What are some of the lessons learned, good and bad, that you would pass on to other people to really help them, for anybody who's like considering it, all the way to moving into their own transitions? What are some of those lessons learned that you would share out with other people?
Sure. So I think the first thing is that the good side is that everybody really appreciates that ability to communicate really seamlessly with teams. I think the adoption rate at this point is very high, and that's part of that is due to obviously COVID and work from home conditions. But they have really appreciated that ability to kind of collaborate on documents, have a really easy space for their teams to have conversations and files easily at their fingertips, right? So those were some really positive aspects. Some of the lessons learned is change is hard, right? Change is really hard. So originally, right, we went live with this pre-COVID by several months, not even really seeing that coming down the pipe. And so getting people to pay attention and understand and attend trainings, right, when they're just used to working out of email to collaborate as they've done for the past 20 years, sometimes that can be challenging for folks, right? So just continually reminding them of the new process and the new tool set that's available for their use. And so they could kind of get used to it. I would also say that, my own team had some challenges with the change of Office 365. So our SharePoint admin and developer kind of lead people on the project. They kind of needed a different skill set because it was very different from our on-prem SharePoint environment. I think that caused a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of angst. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they kind of moved into different positions where they felt like their skill set aligned a lot better. And so the next question after that was, okay, so now we have these open positions for this new tool set. What do we need to, what are we even looking for? And so I kind of had to identify what skills were probably the best skills to look for to fill this position. And was it somebody that had, 20 years of on-prem SharePoint experience, or is it, a different skill set, somebody that we're looking for? So I think there's a lot of that could be definitely lessons learned in our book. Let's see, I think the final one is that we're continuing obviously now to have discussions about who does what, right? From the ops side of the house to the SharePoint admin position to the developer position, like who is responsible, who can have tenant admin rights, whose job is that to keep, some of these things secure. And I think as Microsoft has made updates in the past year, some of those permissions have been more granular, and SharePoint admins now have more ability to do things that they didn't necessarily have ability to do when we first went live. And so some of that's kind of shaking out in the shuffle, probably based on feedback from those early adopters like ourselves. But that's definitely been a challenge for us, is to figure out, whose responsibility is it, how do we empower our admins to do what they need to do, but in a secure way for our security team to be comfortable.
I think those are all great things. I definitely want to echo the thing that you said about training people early on, and kind of there was a struggle there because I was obviously part of that. And I think that it's really great that you guys have put so much effort into training. It's really interesting because I talk to people all the time and I'm constantly doing estimates, and they're like, do you really need this big chunk of training? Because, what does it really matter? And I think one of the secrets that you guys have had in terms of success is how much you have provided training and support back to your users. Because I think that they know more about what the tools can do. They feel a little bit more able to do it on their own. And I think, the more information you give them, the more power they have on their own side to be able to do what they need to do to be successful. And so I think that's worked out really well.
Right. I definitely agree. And I appreciate you having taken on a lot of those training steps for us early on, because I think we take a really personalized approach to training, right? Science comes first at the Institute. So, we try to make it so, everything that we're doing and changing very accessible to our end users. And one of the greatest things about Office 365 and Teams trainings is that we were able to have live training sessions hybrid with some people online, some people live. We recorded them. We stored them down at that time into Stream. Now they're in OneDrive, but that's a different story. But it's highly accessible to all of our members. So if they weren't able to attend a training, they could do it on demand at any point in time when it was convenient for them. And then just being open to going and sitting or doing a one-on-one meeting with a user to make sure that they understand the tool set whenever possible. If that's something you can afford to do when you're doing a big change in the way processes work, I think it goes a long way to user adoption because they feel like they're being supported.
Yeah, and so since this track is about user adoption, one of the really neat things that has happened to me is, we did all those trainings early on, we recorded them all, and one of the things that Jessica talked about is they have a lot of researchers, and a lot of them work really weird hours, or they're in the labs the whole time, and so a lot of times they don't come out and get together in one group, and you don't get to meet everybody. And what was really fun is I was actually walked down to get a drink of water one day, and one of the ladies walked up to me who I'd never met in person, hadn't been in any classes or anything, and she looked at me, she goes, "You're the training lady." And it was really exciting, and I think it was really exciting because it meant that people were watching those videos. It wasn't even so much about the fact that I hadn't met her, but the fact that people were actually going back and watching those training videos, so they know who I am. They knew that somebody was there doing that, and it means that our plan was working really well. It was really driving user adoption, and people were able to go out and get that information easily. All right, so now we're going to shift a little bit. So obviously we had a global pandemic. Did Stowers have anything set up from a DR plan for something like COVID or like a pandemic where members would need to be away from their desk for a significant amount of time before COVID happened?
Sure. So we definitely had a disaster recovery committee and team that had outlined, what if scenarios. I don't think anybody had thought we would have a global pandemic that lasted this long with work from home. I think, that was maybe a little bit of a surprise, but we also are a research institute. We actually ended up, swinging up a bunch of COVID research even early on. And I think we might have had a little bit of more foresight than maybe other companies. So probably started to kind of get that committee together early February, realizing that something maybe could happen, like a global pandemic at that point in time. And so we were ready to go at the beginning of March, I think, with some plans in those directions. They got deployed rather quickly into what we called phase 3, which is an everybody work from home status. I think we were very fortunate that we'd gone live recently with the Office 365 suite. We'd already done a slew of trainings. We had quite a few videos out there for people to watch at their fingertips. We, in addition, obviously had to do some stuff with VPN licenses and making sure everybody had computers and laptops that would work from home. But in the meantime, they could already get to Teams from any device, right? They could already get to that Office 365 package that we deployed. And I think that made that transition really super smooth. So it was very fortunate. And then, on the other side of it, I think it also helped push that change process, right? That fear was people were jumping in the water now and they had to use it. And it was a great push towards user adoption, although I'm not sure that's something anybody will ever have again. During their change management process. It was certainly a bright side, I guess, if you could find one, to the situation.
I don't think we should depend on a pandemic to
No,
help us with our digital transformation or user adoption strategy. I don't think that's a great plan.
No, but it was, the silver lining in the situation was we had amazing user adoption, but we were prepared for it, and so that was nice.
So how do you think specifically having, Microsoft 365, and when we think about things like Teams and SharePoint and Stream and all those different avenues, how do you think that really helped for communication and collaboration during the transition and during the COVID disruption that happened?
I think people were just able to, pick up. We'd already created groups based on our kind of governance strategy and plan. We had come out of the box with groups for every single department. So every department already had a team set up for communication between their department. It was very easy for our leadership teams to communicate with all of those departments, right? Both through Teams and obviously just our SharePoint intranet site. So we had a lot of communications going out in both of those methods. And because they were already all set up, that was really super helpful. In addition, our COVID research programs spun up kind of some one-off teams, and we had a lot of cross collaboration going on to figure out how we were going to start testing all of our members on a weekly basis, and then doing some antibody tests early on, and kind of getting some of those research protocols written right off the bat. And so there was a heavy slew of collaboration for that effort. And I think that was probably the most exemplary. Cross-team communication was so smooth. And I think that just set us off on the right foot, right? So all of these people that really wanted to do something to help with the pandemic and to fight COVID were brought together through Teams as an interface.
So that said, do you think that going through COVID and going through everything that happened changed the way that the members at the Institute view M365 and other cloud-based tools, but those M365 apps that we were rolling out at the very very beginning, they're like, I don't know if I'm going to use this. I don't know how it's going to work. I'll watch the training. Do you think it's changed the way that they see those and feel about them?
Well, definitely. I mean, we've just changed the way we work at this point. I mean, we have certainly people back in the lab at this point, but we still have a slew of people that are still working from home whenever possible. I think that's, changing every day to be more and more work back in the office, but we're finding ourselves in a very hybrid situation. So we had that year of time where everybody was home, they're learning these tools, they figured out how to do these online meetings. We're masters at online meetings now, right? I mean, we all know, we've all had our snafus, and we understand how to deal with it. We know where that mute button is. We know how to mute somebody if we need to. So a lot of those things we've figured out, and now we're entering into this. How are we going to support hybrid work environments, right? With some people in the office in a conference room while some people are at home. How are we going to bring them into that Teams meeting and make it an effective meeting? And so those are the questions we're asking right now. But we've been pushed into it, and it's just, we know these tools are the way that we're going to continue working. In addition, I think, at least from the development team's perspective, we've gotten a lot of great feedback that doing a demo from Teams is way more effective in a way than doing it in a conference room where you have the screen maybe up on a TV or a projector that isn't the same resolution as the users are used to maybe seeing. Now we're bringing that demo like right onto their laptop, like they would maybe see when they're using the application itself. We're finding less, people are more interactive, chatting their questions during the demo because they don't want to maybe necessarily interrupt, but they can go ahead and immediately get that thought down, and the presenter can immediately see that question and maybe speak to it without interrupting the flow of the demo or the presentation. So I think we're seeing a lot of really great ways in which this tool has made our demos better, which I don't know that will change. Even if everybody's back in the office at some point in time, we are really considering probably just doing a Teams meeting for demos because it works really, really well.
Yeah, I definitely think, when you think about all the things that are happening right now, whether it's inclusivity or, and inclusivity can include geographical location, or it can include recording things so that people have them available later, or maybe watching them on their phones. I think it goes a long ways to allow people to see things and participate things in ways that they probably wouldn't have been able to do before. It's kind of interesting from a statistical perspective. For those of you guys that don't know, according to what Microsoft has, the Microsoft Teams daily users went from around like 50 to 75 million users at the beginning of the pandemic to almost about 150 million daily users now. So I don't think just your team that has had this impact.
Sure.
And I absolutely think that people are probably going to stick with at least some level of virtual element across the board. I've heard it everywhere that people have really gotten a lot of value out of the virtual elements. I don't think it's to mean that people will never see each other in person again, but I definitely get it's added an additional level of value for people to have those tools. So we've got a few minutes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say, we've also had scientists tell us, I can't leave my experiment. I have to sit here and take a picture every 15 minutes, right? But they can attend a training or a meeting or a demo with their computer there and still be in the area where they need to do their work. So that, I think, has also been helpful.
I think that's something that businesses, I've been working with that for 20 years, is there's been, not everybody is sitting at a PC or a laptop at their desk, the entire time. There's a lot of opportunity to include people that are not corporate employees that are sitting at a desk. So I think that's fantastic that that's helping those people. So we have a few minutes left before we're at the end. We've got about, 5 or 10 minutes left. I'd love to open it up to the audience. If anybody has any questions, just let us know, maybe put it in chat, or, we can take you off mute if you'd like to raise your hands. Just want to be here to answer some of those kind of questions around, if you're dealing with this, or if you're planning for this, or, maybe some of the experiences that Jessica's had of going through this process during COVID. If anybody has any questions, just raise your hand or put them in chat, and we're happy to answer them. Otherwise, Jessica and I can just talk for another 5 minutes, because we could probably keep ourselves occupied forever just chatting. Give everybody a minute. I don't see anybody putting their hand up yet. Got quite a few people in here, which is great. I'm trying to think if there's anything else really interesting. I think the biggest thing you brought this up early on and talked about it for a minute, but it's just the role changes that have happened. And I think it's something we kind of thought would happen, but we didn't understand how big it was and how extreme it was, with all of the different applications and all the different integrations, and how things have kind of moved around in the stack from being kind of individual applications that each admin had ownership of, to being a more integrated cloud solution, kind of all in one. I think Microsoft is starting to break those roles down a little further to where they're a little bit more organized, but definitely getting from there to here I joke that I've done more dev hand-holding and therapy probably than anything over the last few years, just because of so much change in all the tool sets that are out there, all the applications, the way that we use them, moving, even simple things like workflows have really changed drastically over the last few years. So I think, I think if anything, I would tell people, you're not alone. You're not the only one who's going through this. Everybody else is handling it. Oh, look, we have a question. Okay, so Kent Warner says, what do your training video viewing metrics look like at a high level, and how long are they? How long are the videos?
So we try to do videos that are subject centric, right? So they can maybe just jump to the video specifically for the thing they're looking to do. So trying to keep, originally I think our first videos were a couple hours long, covering every topic under the sun in Microsoft, Office 365. And the first thing is people don't maybe want to see all of those topics all at the same time. Now they can obviously jump through the video, but we found that it was probably a little bit better practice to cut them down into smaller bits of information so they could view exactly what they were looking to view. That also keeps us from having to redo the whole video when Microsoft makes an update to one aspect of what we just trained on. So that has been one thing I guess we've seen, is that we do have to, kind of continuously film these training sessions and put updated copies out there, because even in the year and a half or so that we've been live, there have been significant changes to some of the tools.
Do you have any idea, like from a metrics perspective, is it like everybody's kind of going at once and looking at them at the beginning and then it kind of trails off? Or do you think that people go back and look at them later?
I think they go to them when it is pertinent for them and their particular role. So when they decide, oh, I'm going to start, using OneDrive a little bit more, that's when they go out and watch that video. So it's, we certainly have a slew right at the very beginning, just because we've put a lot of communication around that training. And so people, of course, watch it in the beginning right off the bat a little bit more, but we find a lot of tricklers, later on as they come into maybe a new team of people and have some new job functions or new collaboration techniques with that particular team. That's when they want to learn how to do certain things. So.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, I know one of the things I've helped you with is we did kind of those basic trainings, but because so many things have changed and there's constantly being new features rolled out, we've gotten to the point that now we're doing a monthly 1 hour overview of kind of what's changed, what are some of the new features, what are some of the support issues that have been coming in over the last month or so to try to tackle some of those. And then also, I was really excited this month. We had one of the users that one of the members that's been working with us come in and do a little bit of a demo of some of the things she's been doing and showing how, now we're getting people using things and then sharing that back out with other people, which I feel like we've kind of come full circle now. We've got everybody set up, people are using it, and they're starting to show off their stuff. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I don't see anything else coming in. We've only got a couple minutes left. We'll stick around till 1 o'clock at my time to answer questions. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Otherwise, Jessica, thanks so much for your time today. And everybody, thank you for coming in and listening to us. And we'll see you at the next event.